Welcome back, Fenville families. I hope you're as excited as I am to find out what happens with our friend Hank Zipzer tonight. Remember yesterday he lost his backpack and he was late to school and he got called into Principal Love's office? Well, he also found out from Mrs. Adolph that he had to do a report about Niagara Falls, his summer vacation. And Hank's not real good at writing, so he's a little nervous about that. So let's find out what happens today. Okay, join me on Chapter 3, which is page 14. At last, I sat at the table and stared at my vegetarian bologna sandwich. Ugh, most of the other kids were waiting in the hot food line. It was either macaroni and cheese day or tuna melt day, or maybe it was both. I couldn't tell without looking at the menu because all the cafeteria food kind of smells the same. I looked around the lunchroom and spotted Frankie. He had just bought a milk and was laughing and talking with Kate Sperling and Kim Paulson, only the two most beautiful girls in the entire school. When Frankie smiles, he gets this huge dimple in his cheeks. As he walked, he kept flashing the girls the big dimple. And man, was it ever working! They were following him to our table. I couldn't believe it. Kate Sperling and Kim Paulson were going to sit down with us? That is, until Robert Upchurch cut in front of them and took a seat across from me. Hey, Hank, mind if I sit here? He asked. Yes, I answered, but it was too late. When Katie and Kim saw Robert, they swerved left. At least I think it was left. Maybe it was right. It's hard for me to keep track of directions. Anyway, they went down a totally different aisle and sat down with Ryan Shimozato and his friends. Robert isn't exactly a girl magnet. He has the neck the size of a pencil and always wears a starchy white shirt with a tie. Yep, that's right, I said a tie. Add that to the fact that he's the most boring person on the planet, and you can't blame the girls for picking another table. Frankie flopped down next to me. Thanks, Robert, he said. Nice work. What'd I do? Robert asked. Poor kid. He really didn't even have a clue. Robert just started third grade, and since the third graders and fourth graders at my school eat lunch together, this was the first day he'd gotten a chance to sit with us. We don't really want him hanging around with us, but he lives in the same apartment building as Frankie, Ashley, and me, so he thinks he has the right to tag along everywhere. Frankie glanced at my sandwich and made a face. He's been making faces at my lunches ever since we were in preschool. I see your mom's at it again, he said. What's she calling this? Soy surprise? Oh, it's bologna, I told him. Bologna? And I go way back, said Frankie, and this is no bologna. I don't know if you've ever had vegetarian bologna before, but I don't think you've ever had my mom's vegetarian bologna. She thinks she invented it, which proves she should keep her thoughts to herself. My mom's vegetarian bologna tastes like nothing you've ever put in your mouth. Let's say it's round, ground, pinkish leaves of grass. Sounds delicious. Let's just say it's really non-food. Ever since my mother took over Papa Pete's Deli, she's been experimenting like crazy with food. Unfortunately for me, my lunch is her laboratory. Vegetarian bologna is only one of my experiments. You haven't lived until you've tried her soy salami. Papa Pete says it's a crime what she does to salami. By the way, Papa Pete is my grandpa. He's the best. Sometimes I get the feeling that he's the only person who really understands me. He never, ever thinks I'm stupid or lazy. Actually, bologna is a very interesting word, Robert said through a mouthful of macaroni and cheese. Frankie and I looked at each other. You know how when you have a best friend and the other person often thinks the same thing at the same time? We were both thinking, somebody get me out of this conversation. What's especially interesting is that bologna contains a silent G, like the silent K in knock or night, Robert went on. Robert knows everything. That's why he skipped second grade. I think it's great to know a lot of things. I just don't think you have to say them all the time. Like, Robert will name all of the James Bond movies in order, including the year they came out, even when no one asks him to. And don't even start him on world capitals. He'll tell you the capital of Indonesia right in the middle of a dodgeball game. The other day, he just looked at me and said, "The human body has enough iron to make one nail." He said it like it was a total normal thing to say. "Robert," I said, "why don't you go sit with the third graders?" "They're not interested in what I have to say," he said. We're not interested either," I said. "Why not?" he answered. "Spelling is a very challenging subject." "Challenging," I said. "That's the understatement of the century. I can't spell to save my life, and it really bothers me too." "Oh, I can't imagine not being able to spell," Robert said. "Doesn't it make you feel stupid?" "Robert, will you cut Zip a break?" said Frankie, giving him a noogie on the head. "Can't you see he's a troubled man?" "What's wrong with you?" Robert asked. "Mrs. Adolph is making us write an entire 5-paragraph essay," I answered. "Neatness counts. Punctuation counts. Everything counts. Do you realize how impossible that is?" Just then, Ashley slid onto the bench next to me and put her tray down. She had chosen both the mac and cheese and the tuna melt. Ashley likes variety in everything. You should see her clothes. She covers them all with rhinestones, even her sneakers. She's got one pair with a family of dolphins swimming in the ocean, and the blue and green rhinestones. She glues them all on herself. "What's impossible?" asked Ashley. "Spelling," I said. "Yeah, spelling is hard," she agreed. "But this is impossible." She picked up a cherry that was sitting on top of her fruit salad. She popped it into her mouth and ate it. Then her face got all twisted up and busy, like a chipmunk shelling an acorn. In no time, she stuck out her tongue, and there was a cherry stem, tied in a perfect knot. Is Ashley Wong an amazing girl, or what? "Ashwina, that is so cool," said Frankie. Frankie has a nickname for everyone. He even calls my dad Mr. Z. No one else I know even talks to my father. "Does nobody care about my problem?" I said. "Is anybody listening?" What's Hank's problem again? Oh, yeah. He has to write an essay, and he does not want to do it. My friend stopped eating and looked at me. How am I going to write a 5-paragraph? How am I going to write 5 perfect paragraphs by next Monday when I can't get what I'm thinking down on paper? I said. My handwriting looks like a chicken stepped in tar and ran across the page. If a chicken stepped in tar, it would get stuck and couldn't run anywhere, Robert pointed out. Ugh, shut up, Robert, we all said together. I put commas in the wrong places, I continued. My capital letters look weird. My lowercase letters look even weirder. My spelling, well, we all know about my spelling. Take a breath, Zip, said Frankie. We'll figure it out. Hey, make friends with the dictionary. Let your fingers do the walking, if you know what I'm talking about. Frankie's really good at school. He thinks math is easy. And, get this, he actually reads for fun. I wish I could do that. I wish it were easier for me to read a book. You sound like my father, I said. He's always telling me to look up words in the dictionary. Suddenly, Frankie grabbed his chest and fell to the ground, flopping around like he was some kind of alien. He's cool enough to be able to do a thing like that in the lunchroom. Even Kate Sperling and Kim Paulson were laughing. Not at him either, but with him. That hurts, he screamed, comparing me to Silent Stan, the crossword puzzle man. That's another one of Frankie's nicknames for my dad. Frankie got up and sat down at the table. Someone please, what's a 4-letter word for a root vegetable? He said, doing his perfect imitation of my father working on a crossword puzzle. We all cracked up. Milk came shooting out of Ashley's nose. It spewed all over her t-shirt, spraying the rhinestones self-portrait she had done. Drops of milk hung off the purple stones she had used for the frames of her glasses. Does anybody have a napkin? Ashley asked. Here, take mine, I told her. My sandwich is never going to make it to my mouth anyway. Remember? Vegetarian bologna. Woo! Frankie climbed back onto the bench. Do me a favor, Zip, he said. Don't ever tell me that I sound like your father again. Then don't bring up the dictionary again, I said. It's such a useless invention, at least for me. Don't tell that to Miss Adolph, Ashley said. She's in love with dictionaries. They don't make any sense, I said. I can't spell words because I can't sound them out. So how am I going to find them in a dictionary if I can't spell them in the first place? Do you know my dictionary is 1,256 pages? Words get lost in there. Zip, you're forgetting to breathe. I know, Frankie. I am breathing. Frankie put his hands on my shoulder. Look, it's just an essay, my man. Yeah, maybe for you, I said. For me, it's torture. Frankie reached into his lunch bag and pulled out a package of ding-dongs. He took one for himself and gave one to me. Listen up, Zip, he said. We're supposed to write about what we did on our summer vacation, right? So just write about what happened to you. You had an awesome summer vacation going to Canada and to Niagara Falls and getting to steer the boat all by yourself when the captain fell overboard? Man, that's cool stuff. Sounds pretty easy to write about, right? Ashley nearly gagged on her second cherry stem. That's not what you told me, she said. You told me your sister got seasick and barfed all over your plastic raincoat. Okay. So sometimes I tell stories, but they're not lies or anything. It's just that I think the world needs to be entertained. I happen to be good at it. Like Papa Pete says, if you got it, flaunt it. Flaunt. Oh, that's another word I can't spell. Suddenly, out of nowhere, came a hand bigger than an average hand, bigger than a tabletop. Then a head the size of Rhode Island appeared. Next came a smell of bad breath. The kind that makes the gel in your hair lose its hold. Ooh. That ding-dong is mine, Nick McKelty said as he smashed what was once my chocolate cake into his oversized mouth. I wolf these. Robert dove for cover under the table. Ashley shot milk again out of her nose. Be my guest, I said. It was either that or have Nick the Tick pound my skull with his knuckles. Nick thinks that because he's the biggest guy in 4th grade, everybody's lunch is his own personal meal. We are his menu, and he just takes whatever he wants. Nick was looking for his second course. My instincts told me that he was headed for Ashley's tuna melt. Nick, I said, yelling to catch his attention. You don't want to eat that. Ha! Like you're going to stop me, he said, flashing me a stupid grin. The ding-dong chocolate was wedged in the gap between his teeth, so it looked like he had 3 front teeth. Did you hear about the tuna they just caught off Cape Cod that ate a license plate from a car from Ohio? I said to him, thinking fast. There was so much metal ground up inside him that by the time he got to the store, he didn't even need a can. I pointed to Ashley's sandwich. That's him in there. Would you believe that? You could almost hear the small wheels grinding inside his huge blonde head. I didn't want that pathetic sandwich anyway, he said. I've got to save my appetite for the Knicks game tonight. My dad's got tickets right next to the players' bench. Nick's father owns the bowling alley in our neighborhood, McKelty's Roll and Bowl. Maybe that's why Nick the Tick thinks he has the right to act like a big shot all the time. All he does is brag, and none of it is ever true. Okay, like I said before, I tell stories sometimes too, but let's get one thing straight. My stories are for pure entertainment purposes. Nick's stories are to make him seem cool, which he's not, I might add. Like he says his father has the best seats for every sporting event in the United States of America. The truth is, mostly they watch the games on TV at the bowling alley. That's what we call the McKelty factor. Truth times 100. In any case, Nick walked away. Ashley smiled at me. Thanks, Hank, she said. I felt proud. I had saved her lunch. You are amazing, Zip, Frankie said. You have so much trouble with so many things, but never with your mouth. It's a brilliant mouth. I thought about that. If my brilliant mouth worked on Nick McKelty, why couldn't it work on Mrs. Adolf? I took out a piece of paper and a pencil. I had a plan. That's all for today.